What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome to the Awesome MTB Short Travel Trail Bike Buyer's Guide. What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB and welcome back to the Awesome MTB Short Travel Trail Bike Buyer's Guide. Over the last few months, we've been testing out 7 of the best trail bikes on the market. Now these are gonna be short travel trail bikes, so about 120 to 130 millimeters of rear travel and 29-inch wheels. And even though each one of these bikes has a unique personality, we're here to help make the purchase of your next bike a lot easier by giving you guys all of the information needed to make an informed decision. Now, in today's video, we're gonna be reviewing another personal favorite bike of mine, and that is the Pivot Trailcat SL. Now, you guys know I'm a little bit of a Pivot Cycles fanboy. I love what Chris Cocalis does, the bikes they put out over there in Phoenix, Arizona, and yeah, absolutely love my time on the Trailcat SL. Now, this is gonna be an interesting one because we actually have 2 Pivot Trailcats in this buyer guide. We have the SL version, which is this, and then we also have the LT version. So stick around for the LT version. That'll probably be the next video. To be totally honest with you guys, I would say between the both, I actually think I like the SL version a little bit more than the LT. Absolutely been loving my time on this SL, and yeah, I really do think a lot of riders are gonna appreciate this bike. So focusing on the SL version, what is the Pivot Trailcat SL? Now, this is 120 millimeters of rear travel, 140 millimeters of front travel. It has about a 65.8 degree head angle up front, and this is essentially the Pivot Trail 429's replacement. Once again, this is supposed to be a more shorter travel, fun, all-day ripper. Now, this right here is a size extra large. I'm 6'2" for reference, about an 805 saddle height. This thing fits me like a glove and probably one of the longer pivots I've tried in a while. This is the XO Pro build. So up front, we have a Fox 34 with the Grip X2 dampener, once again with 140 millimeters of travel. And in the rear, we have a standard Fox float rear shock. For the drivetrain, we have a SRAM XO transmission group set. We have the brand new Fox transfer dropper post with a Pivot branded WTB saddle. Up front, we have Pivot's own carbon handlebars as well as their own grips. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, these grips are the best grips on the market. Now, as you guys can tell, we also have SRAM Maven's brakes on here, which is an interesting brake choice for a 120 millimeter trail bike. We'll talk about that later on. And for wheels, I actually went ahead and upgraded the wheels to DT Swiss 1501 spline wheel set. These are gonna be carbon wheels from DT Swiss, super lightweight and stiff. Wanted to get this bike a little on the lighter side to compete directly with the Mondraker because I feel like both these bikes have similar geos. And on these wheels, we have a Maxxis Minion DHF up front with the Maxxis Minion DHR in the rear. Now, one of the coolest things is we finally have internal frame storage on Pivot's mountain bike line. Now, this extra large test bike with an XO transmission group set on there, carbon wheels, is coming in at about, I would say a little over 31.8 pounds. So it's looking about 31.81 pounds. And I'm gonna put that in kilograms for you guys. And that is with pedals. I'll put the pedal weight on the screen, 14.43 kilograms. Now, this does share the same frame as the LT version I'll be reviewing in the next video. However, you can swap back and forth between both. They're kind of intended to be one or the other. There's a different link as well as a different rear shock you would need. And overall, both the bikes ride very differently. So be sure to stay tuned for that LT review. But like I said, you guys, I've absolutely been loving my time on the Pivot Trailcat SL. This bike truly is one of those bikes where you can get out of the saddle, mash your brains out, get that XC efficiency that you kind of expect from Pivot bikes, but at the same time too, a very capable feeling ride on the downhills. Let's actually take you guys out on the trail, show you guys how this bike rides before giving you guys my final review of this bike. But before we do, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of this series, and that is Bicycle. Let's face it, you guys, buying and selling used bikes is insanely tough right now, which is why we're stoked to partner up with Bicycle.
If you didn't know, Bicycle is one of the largest online marketplaces where you can go to buy or sell pre-owned bikes. They have more than 30,000 listings on their site, and the best part about it is that the process is insanely easy both for buyers and sellers. Are you in the market for a used bike? No more sketchy meetups at random places. They make the buying process quick, simple, and most importantly, safe. With a no-hassle return policy, if the bike you buy isn't exactly what was shown on the listing, they will take care of you. Plus, get fast and safe payments without having to deal with strangers. Want to sell your used bike? They make the posting process super quick and simple, even helping you come up with a price for a used bike and then sending everything you need to pack and ship the bike up when it sells, as well as a shipping label.
Yes, you heard that correctly. They take care of everything for you, including sending you a shipping box, getting you a shipping label, and even scheduling a pickup with your local delivery service. It really is the easiest way to sell your used bikes.
Recently, they also added a component section to the website, so now you can sell any old bike parts you have that have been lying around or pick up some gear for yourself and save a ton of money.
Once again, you guys, there's never been an easier way to buy or sell used bikes. Now, we all have a bike that's been lying around. We've been meaning to sell it. The cool thing is Bicycle is actually gonna be waiving 100% of the selling fees during the duration of this buyer's guide. Don't worry if you're here in the future, they still take care of friends of the channel, so be sure to check out the link in the description. Huge thank you to Bicycle for being an amazing platform to buy and sell used bikes. And with that being said, let's get back into the series. Like I said, you guys, no better place to sell a used bike in today's market or buy a used bike than Bicycle. Huge thank you to them for sponsoring the series and making these videos possible. We'll leave that link in the description of the video. Once again, 100% of the selling fees will be waived during the duration of this buyer's guide, but they'll still take care of you after, so be sure to check out that link. And with that being said, let's go ride the Pivot Trailcat SL out here in Laguna. All right, you guys, we have another review coming at you, the Pivot Trailcat SL today. And you guys know me, I'm a little bit of a Pivot fanboy. I absolutely love the work of Chris Kokalis and the Pivot team. I think the bikes have a very unique feel out on the trails, and the Trailcat SL is no different. This thing is a ton of fun. And on the single track portion of Rocket, and I've always said Pivot bikes are probably some of the most efficient, especially when you put the power down. The suspension platform just tends to tighten up a little bit, so giving you that pedaling platform that makes these bikes so freaking awesome. And you know, this Trailcat SL 120, insane amount of pep to it. Probably one of the funnest bikes out of the saddle. And then in through these corners, super playful. You know, I would actually say between this and the Trailcat LT, which is the longer travel version of this, I prefer the SL. It just has exactly what I'm looking from 120 mil trail bike. And as you guys can tell, very capable out on the trails, even though, once again, this is the SL version, super light coming through here. Oh my God, I love that Geo. Now through the chunk, this is where DW Link really does shine. It just absorbs everything so well, but still gives you a little bit of extra speed coming out of the chunk. Now, the one limiting factor with the SL, and what I think I would like to see change, is actually a 36 mil fork up front, because I think the bike itself is so capable speed-wise, and it would benefit from that 36 mil fork, but such a fun bike, and probably also one of the quickest too. It's definitely up there. Absolutely love this capable 120. Coming through this chunk, very precise steering. You can tell they want you to ride some techie terrain. I mean, looking at their backyard, South Mountain of that, what a freaking amazing climber as well. Coming up here, no issues for the Pivot Trailcat. A couple of fun corners here, making fast work of them. Now, my personal bike, I actually have a Switchblade, and this in comparison to the Switchblade makes sense. I feel like they're different bikes. When we start getting into the LT, we'll talk about that in that review. That's where I think I still prefer the Switchblade, but I totally would want an SL in my quiver. Couple of fun corners down here, super fun on the Trailcat. What an amazing momentum generator in and out of corners. And then especially this section, we're a little bit sandier and then tech here. Even without pedaling, so much speed generated from the DW Link platform and the Pivot design. Truly one of the fastest 120 rippers. Got some high speed action on the links. And once again, you guys, I am definitely blown away at just how capable 120 millimeter travel bikes are getting. Because this literally is basically an enduro bike of 5 years ago, which is insane. And I truly think that the Trailcat SL is gonna be that perfect bike for so many riders out there, especially if you have like a long travel 29er in your lineup already, and you want something that you don't want to go full XC. You still want to be able to hit trails like this, but you want a little bit of a lighter setup, just play around out on the trails. That's where this comes into play. Do I think it could be a standalone bike? Yes, I also think this could be a standalone bike, but I think that is with the 36 mil fork up front. And I actually think that bikes are getting so capable nowadays, like this. This is insane. And honestly, I would just start specking 36 automatically on anything you want with a 65-degree heading or in that 65-degree range. Once again, you guys, blown away at how capable the super light version is. Chris Kokalis and the entire Pivot team. I'm a Pivot fanboy. These bikes are amazing. Let's get back and talk about it. So the first thing we're gonna talk about is climbing. Once again, that classic Pivot feel. All Pivot bikes I feel like are great climbers, similar to Ibis's, and I feel like the Pivot Trailcat SL might be one of their best climbing bikes that I've tested out. The efficiency of the Trailcat SL both in and out of the saddle is pretty insane. It really does inspire you to get out of the saddle and put that power down, because on Pivot bikes, when you get out of the saddle and you start putting that power down, the suspension almost tightens up a tad, and it feels like you get a little bit of extra efficiency, especially on those hard efforts. Now, the interesting thing and also why I love Pivot bikes is because when you slow down the pace, especially on tech style climbs, you get a little bit more added traction. So it's almost like the suspension eases up just a tad, and it truly is the best of both worlds. I've always said it, out of the saddle, Pivot bikes are some of the best sprinters, and you definitely feel that with the Trailcat SL. Another thing that I love about the Trailcat SL is the Geo. I love that seat angle on the SL as opposed to the LT. We'll touch on that in the next video. But yeah, I feel like the seat angle on the SL is absolutely dialed. I feel like you're right on top of that bottom bracket. On top of that, I feel like the reach is a little bit roomier than previous Pivots I've tested. And overall, at 6'2", I really did love the fit of this extra large bike. And I would actually say this has probably been one of my favorite fitting XLs from Pivot. Another thing I love about the Pivot Trailcat SL is just how quiet it is. I feel like Pivot has some of the best tolerance checks in the game, and it really does feel when you take any Pivot out, they all have that perfectly assembled feeling out on the trails. And the best way to describe that is when you're out there and you're putting that power down, especially on climbs, you don't get kind of any weird creaking from your pivots or anything. You can tell that the QC process is dialed with Pivot bikes, and I feel like that is a testament to the Pivot craftsmanship. I feel like that's something that's super prideful for Chris Kokalis, and yeah, you could definitely feel that in the bikes when you're riding them. All right, moving on to everyone's favorite part, and that is the downhill, and that's something that was mind-blowing about the Pivot Trailcat SL. Now, even though this is supposed to be a little bit more of a lighter weight style trail bike, it was insane how much confidence I had out on the trail, especially when the pace picked up. I feel like the geo numbers are absolutely dialed, and the fact that the reach is a little bit longer, a little bit slacker than they traditionally would do on a trail bike of this travel, it absolutely rips out on the trail. And the other thing is that Pivot feel, and that's kind of going into the suspension aspect that I love about this bike on the downhill, is that classic Pivot feel. It feels like traction is absolutely insane, especially over chunk. DW Link and high-speed tech is an insane thing to feel, because not only do you get that suppleness that you would want over tech where the bike is really tracking super well to the ground, but you still get that pop and play in and out of corners. And it truly was insane how capable the 120 millimeters of travel felt out on the trails, especially when you're going fast through corners, through tech. And I was very impressed by the pairing of the suspension design and the Geo itself. Absolute ripper of a 120 millimeter travel bike. Another thing I loved about this bike was how playful it felt out on the trails. This was probably one of the more playful bikes, especially on tight, twisty single tracks. It was just very easy to flick that rear end around. I think a lot of that is that classic short chainstay pivot approach. And it's one of those bikes where you can put it exactly where you want to out on the trails, and that's so important to a shorter travel 29er. And the Trailcat SL just feels like one of those bikes that really wants you to utilize every small bump in the trail to kind of boost, get some air, flick that rear end in and out of corners. A very playful approach, and something that I think is so crucial to a shorter travel bike. I also liked how stiff the frame felt, both front and rear. I've always said that Pivot bikes are probably one of the stiffer out of the game. You could tell that they definitely didn't want the frame to hold you back. And the fact that this is the same frame as the LT version, they knew that people are probably gonna be riding these bikes on more rowdier trails. So you definitely get a little bit more of a confident feeling from the frame itself. The frame is definitely not gonna be holding you back. And yeah, the stiffness was very appreciated, very precise feel to the bike out on the trails. Now, what did I not necessarily love about the Pivot Trailcat SL? Now, this is kind of going into the LT comparison. Stick around for that LT review. I know that Pivot was trying to do something a little bit different, kind of have that one frame that you can kind of configure two different ways, but it's still two separate bikes. I do think I would be very curious if they were to put all of their time and effort into just designing the 120 to be as light as possible, because I think it is possible to get this bike a little bit lighter, especially if you're not intending it to be ridden in places where you want the LT to be ridden. I feel like the geometry on this bike is absolutely dialed, as is the suspension design. It would be interesting to feel like what is the lightest weight creation they can come up with this bike. Once again, this is just my opinion. I'm not a frame designer, I'm not a frame engineer by any means. Now, another thing that I didn't necessarily love about the Pivot Trailcat SL, and this is probably a little bit more on the component side, for this being a stock build, Pivot has always been a little bit more on the stock build side as opposed to frame only. And I would say the build itself is a little bit confusing, because you have the Maven brakes on here, you have much more aggressive tires. However, at the end of the day, you have a Fox 34 and a Fox float rear shock. I actually think that Fox float rear shock is plenty capable. It would have been nice to see a Fox 36 spec'd on the 120, just because I feel like if this bike is going to have the same frame as the LT version, suspension. Clearly it's capable, and you can also reach some pretty insane speeds on this. I do think that 34 is a very limiting fork, and especially if you're going to pair this bike with Mavens, that's another thing that doesn't really make sense for that 120mm chassis. I think I understand what happened here. Obviously this is not coming from Pivot, this is just my personal opinion. I think they released this bike at a time where they knew that the SRAM codes and the SRAM levels were going to be outdated because they were coming out with the new motive brakes, and I think what they wanted to do was make sure that the customer is not going to be stuck with old brakes. It would suck that you buy a bike and then all of a sudden the whole new lineup comes out, and I think the new motive brakes are also really good. I think SRAM motive brakes probably would be a better fit on here, or maybe even levels. I don't think these 120, and I would actually even say 140mm travel bikes need Mavens. But yeah, in terms of an overall build spec, I would probably spec this thing with either motives or levels, a 36 up front, keep that Fox float rear shock. To summarize things up, I'm still a Pivot fanboy because the Pivot Trailcat SL definitely deepened my love for the brand. This is an insanely fun bike, probably one of the most playful and nimble bikes out on the trails, but still retains so much confidence, especially when things get chunky. And I can only imagine the potential of this bike with a 36 up front. I absolutely love the short travel nature of this bike, and if I was to pick between this and the LT version, I think I would pick the SL version. You guys will still have to stay tuned to that LT review because that's going to be coming out next. Now, how do the Pivot Trailcat SL compare to the other bikes in this test? That's going to come out in the conclusion video of this series, so be sure to subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on any of that. If you guys have any questions about the Pivot Trailcat SL, definitely let us know in the comment section. Happy to answer them. If you guys can hit that like button, it helps out the channel a ton. And until next time, you guys, ride awesome.